Sir, I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Casterbarus.
I hope the ears are a bit less conspicuous this time.
You might be a doctor, but I am
I'm a doctor, but probably not the one who expected.
Absolutely fantastic.
All of time and space, everything that ever happened or ever will. Where do you want to start?
Michael Erskine course. I am a...
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Big on the Inside, the new Doctor Who Watched On podcast.
Sorry, you might want to retake. I knocked my mic. You might want to redo that.
We'll be fine. We'll carry on. I ain't starting again. You interrupt me one more time, you're getting fully replaced by Harrison. Do you know that? All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim.
All right. Okay, it's fine. We'll soldier on. The listeners understand that I am Tim Saxby, host of Big on the Inside, the new Who Doctor Who Watch On podcast, and with me is my current co-host, Harry Murdoch. Hello, Harry.
Current for now.
Current. It could change. Fingers crossed. Anyway, hi Harry. How are you? How do you do? Do you do good?
I do all right. Yeah, I do pretty all right.
Are you feeling scrum-diddly-umptious?
Scrum-diddly-umptious? Like the Wonka bar?
Let me clear up something I said last week. I said something that I know upset a lot of people because I got the plot of My Postman, the Harry Styles upcoming film.
Did you just say Postman?
For goodness sake. I got the plot of My Policeman confused with the plot of Last Night in Soho, the Edgar Wright horror thriller film that has a trailer coming out today. So we'll talk about the trailer next week because it stars Matt Smith. But yeah, just people that have to keep...
Honestly, now you've said it, I want to see a film of Harry Styles as a postman a lot more than a policeman.
What's he doing? What's he doing as a postman? Is he like a postman bat thing? Just like a postman?
Basically live action Postman Pat. I don't know if he has a cat or not, but just him, sauntering around a British village delivering parcels.
Does he sing the theme tune? Sing the theme tune. That was my Little Britain Dennis Waterman impression.
God, that's like the one of the few skits from Little Britain that hasn't aged horribly.
That's true. I could be so good for you. Love me like you want. That's a different song. What's the theme tune to Minder? How does that go?
I honestly, I had no idea who Dennis Waterman was when Little Britain was a thing.
Yeah.
I still don't have any idea who Dennis Waterman is.
Talking of things,
I just know he was the tiny guy who writes the theme tune.
I watched Rare Beast, directed by Billie Piper. Have you heard of her, Harry?
I have no idea who Billie Piper is. Why are you bringing her up on the Doctor Who podcast?
Billie Piper is a former pop star princess who went on to stardom when she appeared in a British sci-fi series, Doctor Who, from 2005 to 2006, then later several reappearances. And she went on to several other projects. Stop me once you're up to speed. With Secret Diary of a Call Girl, and she was once married to Lawrence Fox, but she's not married to Lawrence Fox now, but she does have some children, and now she's married to another man, and she's just released a film that she was a director of called Rare Beasts.
I don't know what any of what you had to say just now has to do with Doctor Who. This is completely irrelevant. Like, Billie Piper, what's that got to do with Doctor Who, bro? What's that got to do with Doctor Who? I don't get it. I don't see the connection. So what? So she was in some sci-fi show called Doctor Who 2005 through to 2010. What's that got to do with Doctor Who?
Anyway, I watched her directorial debut of Rare Beasts, and I thought I would just mention it as a little recommendation to anybody out there. It's possibly not the greatest film, but she is a very talented director, and the way the shots are very well constructed is definitely worth a shot. Sorry to go off course there, Harry. Would you like me to go on to actual news surrounding Doctor Who?
Well, just something vaguely related to Doctor Who. I don't talk about some random actor who's not got anything to do with Doctor Who.
Alex Kingston. Is that better for you?
Who
If
the
we talk
who-
about Alex
who the hell is-
Kingston?
who the heck is Alex Kingston, bro?
We're not doing this. We're not doing this for the full podcast. Tell you that was Alex Kingston. There was a video published on YouTube this week. Alex Kingston reacts to River Song's most iconic Doctor Who moments. It's a good 20 minutes long. So if people want to go and watch that, I'd highly recommend kill a good afternoon watching that and going back and reading all the fun comments.
How long is your afternoon if it's just 20 minutes? Like that's a short afternoon, bro.
That kills quite a lot of time. If you're gonna have a nap in there, you're gonna cook your lunch, do a bit of work, got half an hour. You want to kill some time. Anyway, she talks about
that's the whole afternoon.
yeah, she talks.
You gave
about...
the impression that watching this 20-minute video would take up your whole afternoon.
She talks about the diary of River Song, the actual diary, the blue book that she was given when she first appeared in the series alongside David Tennant in series 4 in Silence of the Library. And she talks about how when she was given a prop, she was just flicking through and there was little stories wrote into the book about what would actually become of River Song. And at the time, she didn't know what any of this stuff meant. It was just setting keywords and doodles and all that stuff. But these like little things that the prop people had wrote in were told to be written by Moffat, who then, built onto that through his tenure as showrunner. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on these little key details that make Doctor Who so immersive and escapist.
I think that with a character where their stories told non-chronologically over several years, such as what we had with River Song, I can imagine that having that diary prop with all these little stories and entries throughout River Song's life must have been an absolute godsend for it. Like, I imagine, like, as an actor, just to have that wealth of information and access to that to help with the characterization, that must have been invaluable. So I think it's very cool that kind of the production team, Moffat, and whoever else was involved put that together for her to use.
Yeah. Because she's got her new book, A Ruby's Curse, which is about the character of Melody Malone, the detective that River Song, sort of takes that character upon herself. And it's sort of her trying to track down this Ruby that seems to be killing people, but also could hold the secret to where Cleopatra is actually buried. So I think we seem to be getting a lot of books recently about Doctor Who that is actually being written from somebody involved in the show. We had Tom Baker do one, Sophie Aldred did one, and now Alex Kingston as well.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's I guess for all these kind of actors who are wanting to kind of jump into other creative areas, as so many actors often do, it's a great kind of entry point having this link with Doctor Who. I mean, I'm saying this as if this is the first thing Alex Kingston has written. For all I know, she's done other pieces of writing before this book. I couldn't honestly say, but she's best known for acting and her acting work. And perhaps this, even if she has written stuff before, could be a good entry point for fans of her acting and fans of her work in Doctor Who to get into that side of her creatively.
Are you a book fan? Do you read many books, Harry?
I read a lot of books in the summer. Yeah,
Is that
right
where your
now,
eyes are at their best? Why is that? Why in the summer?
Well, during like the year,
Too dark in the winter? Can't see the pages?
That is a big factor. That is a big factor, yeah. I was going to give a serious answer, but we'll just go with that because it's more funny.
Fair enough. Do you want some actual Doctor Who news, though? Some proper Doctor Who news that we can probably make a video about?
All right, if you have it.
Okay, well, speaking to Digital Spy, Doctor Who director, here we go, I got to butcher her name. Lydia Manzor was nervous. She talks about how nervous she was directing that iconic Joe Martin episode, Fugitive of the Jadoon. She says, Chris Chibnall's a very generous showrunner. You heard it here first, folks. I was able to discuss with him the costume, what do we do with her, the aesthetic, what does her TARDIS look like? We had different lighting options. What about her skin tone, the costume? We were really trying to think colourful about how we could really make her just so badass. Is she badass? Does she look cool? What is she wearing? Brackets, laughs. These are all the just important. These things just felt so important. I felt really lucky with that, actually, because it has so many shifts of both those doctors. One of my favorite things as a director is performance, working with the actors and finding the truth, finding the vulnerability and all the shades. They're both so generous to work with. I was honestly such a great experience for me. It was the biggest thing I'd done so far. So coming onto it, I felt nervous, oh, I'm really kind of stepping into the big league. This is a machine. They have their kind of ongoing crew, but the crew are so awesome and they really made me feel welcome. So there you go. There's a little thing about what it's like being a director of Doctor Who.
It's a very cool thing to hear about because um, it's weird how in TV, very often you don't hear the directors talked about that much. You hear about, obviously, TV actors and TV writers and kind of showrunners of TV shows you hear about a lot, but you never hear much about the directors, the people who are kind of the ones coordinating the whole production of episodes and getting them on the screens.
Yeah, it's strange. Because when it comes to movies, it usually is a film by such and such. When you watch a TV series, usually written like It's a Sin. It's like Russell T Davies' brand new series, or written by Neil Gaiman or Stephen Moffat, and these big television writers' names. So it's strange when we get. It shouldn't be, and I don't know why I've never really clocked it as somebody who has a passion to possibly direct. Why TV directing is sort of seen sort of differently.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking right now of kind of like when it comes to like the big kind of, if you think like big blockbuster movies, like even those kind of the identity that we associate as the creative head of those is often the director. I mean, maybe it's because in Hollywood you very often get kind of, especially when it is a notable creative voice at the helm, it's often a writer director. Like if you think of like Star Wars and Marvel movies, a lot of those have directors who also write them, be it the Russos, James Gunn, J.J. Abrams, Ryan Johnson, etc.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I feel like directors in movies have a more hands-on approach with the actual construction of the story, whereas I feel with Doctor Who, it's usually let's get the writers, we've got to make the story good, and then we'll make it look good, rather than the other way around, which seems to be, to be honest, a better option.
Yeah.
Series 13 news, Harry. We've been light on it, so would you like some?
Yeah, if you have some, I'd love to hear
Okay, so
it.
this is all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff, but we'll soldier through. So somebody has did a tweet saying that they had bumped into Sacha Dwar, who played the Master in the last series of Doctor Who, series 12.
Yes.
Of Doctor Who, alongside Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor. And obviously, there was the whole thing of the Timeless Child, which, love it or not, it happened. But Sasha has been spotted in the last couple of days back in Cardiff, which is where they're currently filming Doctor Who, because John Bishop recently posted a little video of himself sat behind the TARDIS saying, "Oh, if I can link it, I will." I'm not sure if you can with Instagram videos, but I'll put a few screenshots up. Basically saying he's in the TARDIS, and you can see the what are the new round things on the wall, right? So that there's that we know they're filming in Cardiff, and it's Sasha's there, so it's kind of self-explanatory. But the other thing is that John Bishop also will be leaving the production of Doctor Who before the series actually wraps, because he has his tour coming up. And he's also scheduled to perform on like a round the UK cruise sort of thing as like a special celebrity stand-up guest.
Okay.
But both of these things, his tour and the cruise, run into when we were told that Doctor Who would be going on to. I think his tour starts in September, and I think the cruise is even before that. So they either are going to have to cram all John Bishop stuff in early, and then I don't know. But one theory that's going around is that it's called Dan, isn't he? That's John Bishop's character's name, isn't it?
Danny, yeah. I want to say
Dan,
Danny.
yeah. So he's playing the character of Dan, and that's all we know. And it's usually these like shorter names that often catch people's eyes because we don't know anything about him. He's called Dan, and he's from Liverpool. But current rumours going around the internet is that Dan could, in fact, be a version of the Master, and that is why Sasha has currently been spotted in Cardiff, as it's it would link up well with John Bishop having to step away from Doctor Who to focus on his own stand-up stuff. And also feeds into a rumor that I spoke about in my own video not that long ago about the Master actually being the Timeless Child as well. We've also seen set photos of John Bishop in period costumes featuring not only different costumes but different facial hair. He has big fluffy mustaches and all this stuff going on. So it seems like the character of Dan, even no matter what happens to him, is going to be going through this development stage.
So there, if we go along with, because I must admit I'm dubious about the whole Dan is the Master thing.
Yeah.
But if we go along with this,
yeah,
and Sacha Dhawan has been seen on a set. Well, we're not on set, but in Cardiff, which is pretty much confirmation that he's going to be in this new series. Which firstly I'm very excited for because I love his work as the Master. It's a question of if they're both going to be there. Is it going to be something akin to World Enough and Time in Series 10, where it's two Masters teaming up, like a new Master and a even more new Master? Or is it going to be a thing where either Dhawan's Master or Bishop's Danny Master gets killed and then they regenerate into the other one? Because obviously with Masters, we don't know the order they come in. And very often we meet the Masters kind of out of order almost. There's much ambiguity. So it could almost be a thing that maybe Daniel, whatever you want to call him, is hanging around on the TARDIS, and then oopsie doopsie, he does a die, and then he goes glowy face and turns into Sasha.
Well, one thing that I was reading was that John Bishop is Sasha in disguise. So it's almost like when I say disguise, I don't mean like prosthetics. I mean like some sci-fi excuse for him looking like John Bishop. I like the idea that the Master's gone, the comedian John Bishop is a very trusted member of society. I shall disguise myself as him. This the whole series is John Bishop in the times. The person John Bishop is not actually playing a character called Dan.
Well, that'd be very strange because like it hadn't quite been the Russell area that kind of you'd have actual celebrities appearing as themselves.
Like
we got to the Moffat era. I don't think that doesn't happen anymore. And I don't know if that's because Moffat was going for a more, people often like to brand it as a more fairy tale-esque thing. So maybe he felt that actual references to real life celebrities wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
I think it'd be funny to bring that back.
When that happens, yeah. There wasn't no celebrity cameos of them playing themselves, was there, in the Matt Smith era?
No, nor was there any in the Capaldi era, if I'm remembering correctly.
I can't remember either. But yeah, I read that theory and I thought, oh, it sounds interesting and it sounds different, and I wouldn't put it past it being something that would happen. But the probability of it happening is quite low. So then that thought makes me think that it could actually happen.
But at the same time, the Master is always such an out of left field kind of chaotic energy and presence in the show. So really, I feel like the more you can push what you do with him, I think the better. He kind of plays into his strengths to kind of do wild card things like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll move on from that because I want to talk to you about some Ninth Doctor news, because Christopher Eccleston has been, unfortunately for him, probably having to speak about Doctor Who to no end of escape the last couple of weeks. And if you bought the Big Finish audio version, you will have noticed that there was a bonus track at the end, which is bonus material, interviews with cast and crew and that kind of stuff. And in that, he spoke about how he sort of became familiar with Doctor Who as a kid and how he loved it because it was black and white and looked creepy. And during this interview, he spoke about how he wished that when he was the Doctor, they had done an episode in black and white, because he thinks that would have really caught the scariness of that original series. Original series, even if we're going back to Troughton and Hartnell. What do you think about that? I feel that would be a really fun idea.
That is actually a really cool idea, because part of the thing is when you look at kind of Doctor Who in like the 60s, and then also compare it to Doctor Who in the 70s, kind of Pertwee, where it's first went into colour. In a lot of ways, the 60s stuff visually has aged a lot better than the 70s stuff.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because it's in black and white. And when it comes to black and white, there's much more room to kind of disguise those imperfections. And there's also kind of more kind of ambiguities to what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I feel like that can really feed into kind of like the mystery and the kind of almost the pseudo horror elements of Doctor Who. So I feel like, yeah, it's kind of surprising now I think about it, the show hasn't really played up to its roots and done something black and white. The closest thing I can think of is kind of the black and white TVs in The Idiot's Lantern or something like that. I can't think. They've never done a full-on black and white version. That's weird.
And it would have worked really well
fun to do.
Doctor as well. That would have been a really good Doctor to do it with. I can't really see it working with Tennant or Smith, possibly with Capaldi, but not with Whittaker.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
If you had to pick an episode of Eccleston to turn black and white to sort of do that sort of style with, what are you thinking? I've got my two options, but I want to know what yours are.
Trying to think. I feel like I want something that feels close to classic Who. Maybe because so much of the story comprises of kind of like a spaceship and kind of an industrial corridors and such. Maybe something like The Long Game in black and white, that would have added an interesting flavour to that.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
I'm not sure. Or
I was
maybe
thinking, The Unquiet Dead or Dalek.
Okay. I have another thought. It would also require rewriting, but what if Bad Wolf was reworked? So instead of it being a satire of kind of, well, at the time, modern shows of the time, like Big Brother and Weakest Link, what if it was done with like a retro 60s aesthetic? And then kind of like loads of scenes of it, maybe not the whole thing, but lots of scenes we saw through these kind of 60s style TV monitors.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that would be fun. I think there's a lot of stuff that in hindsight you could have really played with if you knew how successful the series was going to be. But I guess at the same time, you don't want to do that first series and really go left wing sort of. When I say left wing, I mean like really off kilter, do something nobody was expecting, go the other side and really sort of handbrake turn it.
Yeah. I guess they kind of wanted to keep things. They didn't want to lean too much into the legacy of the show at that point. It was only with the subsequent series that they started to, do stuff like bring back Sarah Jane and K9 and really kind of acknowledge the legacy of the show once they kind of had the foundation of, okay, people are into Doctor Who again.
Sticking with the Ninth Doctor, Harry, I'm guessing as a big sci-fi fan that you were watching the National Space Centre's YouTube channel all week and keeping up with the British Comic-Con that they had going on.
Yes, I watch it every day of the week. I am subscribed. I definitely just didn't watch the video that you sent to me before this podcast. I
will ask, Harry, did you watch How to Create Sci-Fi Audio with Big Finish?
Well, it just so happened that it came up in my YouTube recommendations. I wasn't sent a link by you at all.
Because in that, it seems to somewhat have gone under the radar, but they released a short snippet of Christopher Eccleston's second volume box set for Big Finish. Girl Destruction, I believe this episode's called. But anyway, they released a short clip. I'll play it now.
Dad?
Oh, hello. This is Mr. MacDonald, Marnie's dad.
Dad?
I was just wondering if she was with you. Only she didn't come home last night and it's not like her.
Dad, I'm right behind you. Or am I right in front of you? I don't know where I am.
Have you got any idea where she might be?
Everywhere.
If you hear from her.
Dad!
Can you tell her she's not in any trouble?
Dad, why can't you hear me?
But to please come home.
I am home, except, well, I feel strange.
Okay.
Everything is fractured, or I'm fractured.
Thank you. Goodbye. Hello, police, please.
Why can't you see me?
I want to report my daughter missing.
I'm not missing.
Marnie McDonald. She's 15. She didn't come home last night.
I haven't left the house.
I think she might have run away.
I haven't. Dad, I'm here. I'm right here, Dad. Please, help me. Somebody, please help me.
All right, don't get your knickers in a twist. I heard you the first time. Honestly, nag, 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 nag. A migration of the Seraphim. Fantastic. Hang on, that's not right. What are you doing there? Talk about the long way round. You'd be quicker on a pogo stick. Unless this thing's stuck again.
Somebody, please help me.
Hello, who are you?
There was the clip. Maybe I put it in, maybe I didn't. But Harry, what did you think of that short clip? I feel it's more what I would quite like. I wasn't disappointed by the first box set, but I'm really looking forward to this one. It sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, the first box set was something that was very kind of big, sci-fi, futuristic in space. This seems something almost kind of reminds me sort of well, not Moffat stuff, but kind of the Russell era's more domestic stories.
Yeah.
Of kind of, well, I guess Moffat in a sense of just kind of like the familiar becoming suddenly unfamiliar and totally different.
Yeah.
And doing something much smaller scale, and it sounds much like a much more intimate thing as well, which perhaps for Big Finish and audio format could be potentially easier to get into. I'm not sure. It sounds very promising.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that first box set by Nicholas Briggs, but I like it when it takes something that we know and really does like a pure imagination thing on it, where it sort of makes something so ordinary, extraordinary, and makes us sort of makes things creepy, like when they've done like old people are scary and statues and things like that.
I think this is especially effective, the idea of a girl turning into just a bunch of particles that are everywhere. You can imagine how, if that was something that was filmed, it would be very difficult to find a way to kind of visually represent that. However, through audio, it entirely leaves it to the imagination, and we're just left with the girl's voice and how she's perceiving things. And I think
you can't see
actually
them,
it plays.
so become one of the characters within the story almost, because you can only. You sort of have a better understanding because you can hear it, but you can't see it. So you sort of get that. It leans so well to audio.
Yeah, it's absolutely leaning into the strengths of an audio drama and kind of, in a way, achieving things that would not be achievable in a televisual format.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool to see.
Yeah, I want that now. But something I know Harry doesn't want now is we've done our Doctor Who news and we've got our watch long coming up in a minute. But I want to talk about Timothy Chalamet, or Tim Toffee Chocolat, as I'm now going to call him, being Wonka in the prequel film to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You a fan?
I have to be honest, I've not seen any performances by Chalamet.
No, I haven't either.
I can't help but feel that because all I kind of know about this casting is that kind of his name was alongside other kind of young British actor Tom Holland, and I don't want to call it for lack of the chocolate pun, like a flavor of the time casting, but it doesn't feel like casting that's being done because they believe this person's the best fit for Wonka.
Yeah,
it feels like it's being done because like this is one of like the hot young actors in Hollywood right now.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to admit, I was dubious about the whole young Wonka film just on a conceptual level. I don't know how much storytelling potential there is in that. I mean, you've seen the Tim Burton film, right, with all the flashbacks. Like, do we need an extended version of that? I'm not sure.
Timothy Chalamet is set to take on the role of Willy Wonka in a new Origins movie. According to Deadline, the Oscar-nominated star of Call Me By Your Name will follow in the footsteps of Gene Wilder and Johnny Depp in an all-singing, all-dancing performance in a prequel inspired by the Roald Dahl Charlie and the Chocolate Factory books. The film will focus on the early years of Wonka before he opens his factory. Paul King, director of Paddington, will be at the helm with the screenplay from comedian Simon Fahrenberg. It will mark the third time Warner Bros. Has brought the character to life, first in 1971, and then in 2005 with Tim Burton's adaptation, which made $475 million worldwide. The story was also turned into a successful musical.
So here's the thing about like the fact that it's the Paddington team and also involved. That then throws me off kilter again because I love the Paddington films. Paddington 1 and 2. I mean, I think you'd be hard pushed to find anyone who dislikes those films. I feel like those are almost universally beloved films.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're at the helm, that just like perplexes me even more because obviously like they make top quality, top of the range S tier family films, and it's a young Wonka film, and I just can't see what can be done with a young Willy Wonka film. I don't see it. I don't see the storytelling potential within that.
Okay, so you don't see the story potential in that, but what about this? Last year it was announced that Taika Waititi, director of Thor Ragnarok, would also be taking on 2 animated series for Netflix based on the world and characters of Roald Dahl's 1964 novel. The streamer has promised that the show will remain the quintessential spirit and tone of the original story whilst building out the world and characters far beyond the pages of Dahl's book for the very first time. The 25-year-old actor, Timothy Chalamet, was last seen in Greta Gerwig's adaptation of Little Women, and his upcoming film includes Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch, and he's also going to be in June as well, which is interesting. I think I have seen him in Greta Gerwig's film, which is called Lady Bird. I saw him in that. I think he was in Lady Bird.
Was he in Lady Bird? Oh, okay. I only saw part of Lady Bird. I feel like I don't know, I don't know if I was too old for Lady Bird when I saw Lady Bird.
You mean too young?
No, too old. Because it's about a teenager. And like,
yeah, but I only saw it last year. I loved it.
I don't know. I struggled to connect with it. I feel like it was kind of like films about teenagers being teenagers is something I struggled to identify with in the same way I used to be able to.
Because you're not a teenager no more, are you, Harry? You're a big boy, all grown up, big boy pants.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I feel like maybe if I saw Chalamet in a film, I would like feel a little more okay, I can see what they're going for. Because I just need to watch a film with Timothy Chalamet so I can get a vibe for why he may have been casted as Willy Wonka. Because right now I just kind of know him as kind of like one of the big up and coming young actors in Hollywood. And, for all I know, maybe it's with very good reason.
If anybody can think of a recommendation for Harry to watch that says Tim Toffee Chocolat, then please do, because then he has something to do. Because I've heard that you're really you've got no work, you're hard up for cash, you're begging on the streets. Things aren't going well for you at the moment, are they, Harry?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely, yeah. I'm definitely not doing anything right now. Yeah.
One-man performances in the streets with cardboard signs, donations required.
Just give me flashbacks of this time in a year.
Harry, do you want to introduce what everybody's here for? The watch-along segment of Bigger on the Inside, the new Who.2 watch-along podcast.
Yeah, God. Wait a minute. Tim, I've already said I'm 21. Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 21.
You're 21? Okay, cool.
No.
Cool.
Oh, wait, how old am I? Am I 22? I don't know how old I am.
For real?
Let me have a quick look on my Facebook to work out how old I am. I've forgotten.
We live in a society where
22.
kids
Do you never
these
have
days
this where you forget?
have to check their own Facebook pages to remind themselves of how old they are.
You must have to do this now and again, surely.
No, when I think of myself and talk about myself, which I do a lot because I'm incredibly self-absorbed, one of the first things that comes to the top of my mind when I think of myself is my age.
How old am I? I think I'm 22. No one likes you when you're 23. Yeah, no, I'm 22. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so I mean, so but putting our ages together, that makes us 40, 43. Oh. I'm trying to think of a way I can crack this. Hey, you know a word that I've been learning to say whilst at drama school properly?
What?
One, the number one. Because I say one like this, one. Or I'm meant to be saying like this, one. That's how I meant to say number one.
Why are you meant to say it like Wan?
Like W-A-N, like Obi-Wan. That's how I'm meant to say one. I've been saying it like W-O-N.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, like talking about the number one, I've been practicing saying it a lot. So for the sake of this, the way I should say the following sentence is 43 minus 1 is 42. Hey, speaking of 42.
That was unbearably bad. That was the worst one we've ever had.
That's what you said last week. You said last week's one was the worst one.
Well, this is worse than last week. It's getting worse each week.
How would you found the transition for 42?
Numbers.
Hey, it's better than, just making like some offhand, I don't know, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference or something.
That would have been so much better.
No, because I'm not a big fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hocus pocus. Oh well. Thank you for listening this far. If you are here, enjoy the rest of the show. If, like we said, if this is your first episode, keep on going.
We're sorry.
We'll talk. Well,
also, I think this is a pretty good one. I had fun with this one.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut it down, pop up!
Podcast scans detect you are not subscribed. The Daleks order you to subscribe. Resistance is futile. Failure to subscribe will lead to extermination. Seek, locate, subscribe.
What's the point in having you all?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the watch along segment of Big on the Inside. You've just listened to us talk about the weekly news. How exciting was the news this week, Harry?
It was as exciting as it has been recently.
That's my favourite response that you've given to that question. A little inside look into the factory, you see how the sausage is made. It is just coming up to 20 to 10 at night. I've just come back from work. This was the only time of the week that we could realistically do our commentary on 42. Sorry, that's not what I should say, is it, Harry? I should ask you, what episode
that jinxes it.
Harry?
This week we are doing 42 by some guy called Chris Chibnall.
Now, this is his first on-screen Doctor Who story. I'm not sure if he's done Virgin and Target novels beforehand. I believe he might have done, in the wilderness years, have done something with Doctor Who. But
although, of course, before this, he had written quite a bit for the first series of Torchwood.
Yeah, which was airing... I don't know if it was airing at the same time that this series was going out, but it links up with... the events that are to come at the end of this series. So he's definitely cemented his feet in the Doctor Who world. What did you think of it? What did you think of 42?
It's interesting. And I know your feelings on what I'm about to say. It kind of, to me, felt like a simpler shorter version of the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, a question I got for you was: do you like episodes where they're trapped inside a spaceship? You know, where they can't get out.
To kind of know more than one of this sort of story per series.
Yeah.
But for what it's worth, yeah, I feel like there's a lot you can get out of that situation. And there are certain things that this episode did. Obviously, there's a lot of similarities, you know. There's a thing on the planet or celestial thing that's controlling people on the base. People are under a time limit to get off or fix the issue. Is the TARDIS inaccessible during this story, or is the TARDIS just there for the whole thing?
It's there, but they can't get to it. It's in that heated room, isn't it?
That's right. That's it. All right. The TARDIS is inaccessible. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's certain things that this episode does to kind of make it stand out. And of course, there's some things. The whole thing with the Satan Pit and Satan being on the planet and all that mystery is not here like it was in Impossible Planet and Satan Pit. So there are differences.
Yeah, that was definitely something that stood out for me. One thing that I noticed a lot in this episode was the characterization of the 10th Doctor. He's very sort of weak and defeatist almost. There's a lot of, I can't do it, I can't reach. And a lot of things where I've gone, why has he done that? Like when it's like, oh, I'm just going to open this big red flaming door and he gets blown to the ground at the very start of the episode. I was like, oh, that doesn't feel like he would be doing this at this point. Maybe in his first series, but you know, so far we've seen him rescue people from the moon and meet Shakespeare and rescue Martha in traffic. There's a lot of bits in this where I'm going, oh, he seems to have just given up.
That's interesting. I feel like later on in the episode, when like the sun is inside him, I actually quite like the weakness there. It's not something that completely registered with me what you said, but no, it makes sense. It is a slightly different feel in the way that the characters kind of interact with each other. Actually reminded me kind of a lot of I've not watched The Order of Torchwood yet at this point, but very often amongst that group, things can get quite heated and arguments seem much more easy to break out compared to, say, a TARDIS team. And you could see that very much within this episode. Kind of like there was a lot of tension between all the main players, including the Doctor.
Yeah. I would say that is one big downside of this episode, is that there is very little development of those characters outside of the Doctor and Martha. There's, I cannot remember his name, but the guy who basically spends a lot of time with Martha, it looks like Noel Gallagher. He's sort of slightly well developed, but everybody else on the ship, it's like, which one are you married to again, and what's your role? Whereas with the Satan Pit, despite not really liking that episode, everybody's role on there, I think even at the start of the episode, the Doctor has introduced everyone and go, that's Toby, he does this. This is Zachary Crossflame, he does this. This is, you know. Whereas with this, I'm like, I don't know why they were on that spaceship.
Were they researching something, or were they just farming the sun for fuel?
Honestly, I think that might have been it, but
yeah,
it's one of those things
because then at the end it turns out,
where it's one of those things where if I'm asking questions right from the start, I almost feel left behind and I disengage with the source almost. It's almost like, if you're not going to bother to explain stuff to me just to keep me on board, then I'm not going to really sort of engage with it. Unlike other episodes like Gridlock, where they do hold information from you, but it's information you know you're going to get answers to. Whereas I felt like with this, I'm sort of going, why should I know that? Why isn't that being explained? It seems I question the writing negatively more than questioning why they're keeping information from me.
Okay. That's interesting.
I didn't really. Most critical thing I think we've ever said.
That is. It's weird. I'm not used to that. We usually keep things positive. I never know how to respond to negative criticism because I like to be a positive guy.
Yeah, it's like when we went and saw Tenet, I said to you, I don't like not liking things. I want to go to the cinema and I want to watch episode 10. I really want to enjoy it. And I was looking forward to this episode because I thought that maybe I had just remembered it wrong and I didn't like it as a kid, and I would really like it now, like I did with whatever the Charles Dickens one's called. What's that one called in series 1?
The Unquiet Dead.
Unquiet Dead. Like, I wasn't looking forward to watching that, but when we watched it, it was one of my favourites of that series. And I thought, oh, this could be another Unquiet Dead, but it wasn't for me. Going back to the 10th Doctor, he has a lot of different outfit changes in this episode, and is this the first time we see him not sporting a tie?
Was he not wearing? I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah.
Is he not in a tie?
He's got the blue suit with like a red shirt and then a red t-shirt on underneath that.
Oh, is this the first time we see the red t-shirt?
Yeah, you know what Human Doctor wears at the end of series 4, yeah. It's like the first
10-2, as he likes to be called, yeah.
10-2. 10-2. 10 to what? Haha, very funny. Yeah, I made a note here about I would rather the week of recording this is the 27th of April. So during this week, or last week even, it was announced that Zachary Crossflame would be returning to Big Finish Stories, the character played by Sean Parks, I want to say. And it made me sort of think I would rather get to know some of these characters a bit more. Despite not enjoying the episode and not really engaging with it that much, I did want to know more about these characters. And I do feel like this maybe could have benefited from a 2-part story.
I guess that is kind of like the pitfall you get into when you kind of introduce this kind of story, and all of and a lot of that kind of main cast introduced gets kind of, offed early on.
Yeah.
That you don't get as much of an opportunity to kind of like introduce those characters and properly establish them without it becoming too obvious that, oh, they're going to die soon, which is why we're introducing them in detail.
Perhaps this would have been cool if they had continued the story of the Satan Pit. Maybe had some of the crew appear again. Not all the crew, maybe the ones who survived appear in this episode, and maybe have a couple of Ood slaves, perhaps, just to sort of bring the two across.
I mean, I think that's the thing that watching it really just caught me off guard, just how similar they were. And that kind of so close to each other. They have two stories which in so many ways share very much kind of the same sort of storytelling DNA.
Yeah.
Even down to kind of like the aesthetic and the colours they use.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's right, actually. I watched a bit of Confidential, and they were saying that Russell was saying that the original script that Chibnall had brought was that it was just them crashing into the sun, and that was it. Obviously, there was a story
that they died.
Well, I can't remember. Well, no, but like the whole element of it being 42 minutes long wasn't that wasn't in the script, and it sort of makes me I quite liked that element of it, just for two reasons.
Is it 42 minutes in like real time as well?
Well, I don't know, because there's a scene where when the Doctor has his laser eyes or whatever, and he says, "I can only stand this for another 10 seconds." I timed that, and it's 40 seconds from when he says it to when they cure him. So I think some of it is and some of it isn't.
You know what would have been cool? Do you remember? Did you ever see the Capaldi story, The Mummy on the Orient Express?
Mm.
And you know how in that story, whenever the mummy appears, there's like a countdown timer appears in the corner of the screen, counting down to when someone gets killed.
Mm.
What if in this episode, throughout the whole thing, you had a 42-minute timer counting down whilst you watched?
That would have been cool. I would have liked that.
It wouldn't be much, but it just would have added so much. Like seeing the time racking down, you're like, shit, they're not fixing it yet.
Yeah, and I do feel like there is tension in there, but this doesn't work on a audio podcast. But I'm holding my hand up halfway. I'm holding my hand up to the top of the frame here for you listeners, and I'm saying to Harry, imagine this is where the tension should be. The tension peaks here. Tim moves his hand down by an inch. It almost reaches a point of satisfaction for me, but never quite gets there. And I feel that's one reason why I want to really like this episode. And I know there is a good story within there, but it just seems to be constantly just out of grasp of being able to get it.
It's interesting when you mentioned the tension, because for me, one of my favorite parts of the episode was probably one of the kind of bits where I felt tension the least, which was the scene when Martha and Noel Gallagher get disconnected from the rest of the ship.
Yeah.
And like the 10th Doctor and Martha just like looking at each other and like they're shouting at each other and they can't see each other. And it just goes really quiet. And like I think the sound completely cuts out as you see them just kind of slowly part away from each other. For me, that was like a really cool atmospheric moment.
Yeah, I've got that.
Stood up because of how quiet and slow it was.
Yeah, there's nothing there apart from dialogue. I don't think there's even sound effects. There's no background music. There's no sound effects to my knowledge. It is just the voices of the actor, and it works really well because it does a really good job of putting you in that void between being in the escape capsule and being on the spaceship, where you can hear both conversations. It almost is, in some ways, I find it similar to the Parting of Ways where Doctor and Rose are saying goodbye, in the sense that they can see each other, but in this case they can see each other, but they can't hear each other. In the sense of the Parting of the Ways, it was that they can hear each other, but they can't really see each other. So, but it works really well. But I do have a number. I'm really sorry to like keep kicking this episode while it's down, but I really disliked the way that they handled Martha in this episode for a lot of it. Because last week, I think we commented on how last week's episode was a real turning point for Martha in the Lazarus experiment, and she suddenly came into her own and she could handle herself. But in this episode, there's a lot of screaming and shouting and banging on windows and kicking stuff and sort of what I would class as classic companion stuff of damsel in distress sort of thing.
Yes, yeah. That's interesting. Kind of down to like, yeah. I'm trying to think why that is. I mean, maybe it's something to do with... because I know that kind of in Classic Who, there were a lot of these kind of base under siege kind of stories. Like, it was a whole genre in of itself, which there are, some stories like that in New Who. And I don't know if this can be classed as a base under siege because it's under siege from the sun.
I think maybe if the tension had been better executed, then that screaming and panicking aspect of Martha would have sit better with me, because it would have been more clear. And I think that's what they were trying to do, is sort of go, well, look how panicked Martha is from last week, so therefore it must be a high stakes situation. But because I don't feel that the stakes were that high, I can see that they're high, but I don't feel it. I then don't engage fully with a lot of the performances.
That's interesting.
This is a really critical, analytic
you're giving a lot. And I'm
normally
just
we
like,
go, Zorbalov, he's funny, isn't he? It's Peter Kay all from Bolton.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to hear this, because this is kind of stuff which I did not kind of register. For me, it was pretty much just a standard Doctor Who episode. I didn't engage with it as critically as you did, which maybe as a podcast host I should. Maybe it's just like the stuff that kind of gets my brain working is the more kind of good, stimulating stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine, next week I'm gonna have a lot of great stuff to say.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. Do you have anything else to say about 42, Harry? We should probably talk about. Pardon me. We should probably talk about that this is Chris Chibnall, who, whether you like it or not, is the current showrunner of Doctor Who, and we're not gonna Chibnall hate or whatever, but I just want to know how you feel about this then in comparison to what he's doing with the show now.
It's I've kind of already said this, but it reminds me much more of his writing on Torchwood at the time, which obviously makes sense, than it does of what he's currently doing with Doctor Who. I feel like it's a very different beast what he's doing here in 42 to what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of, it's almost like, obviously, it's been over 10 years since, so I guess it makes sense that there'd be some sort of progression.
Yeah.
I think this compared to Series 11 is exactly 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah, I want to say. I keep getting things on Facebook. It's like 10 years since this. Yeah, it's 10 years because Freema did a thing on Instagram saying 10 years ago today I was Martha Jones, whatever. So it's 10 years of 2021, so 2011. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
not 2011. That doesn't make any sense. What? No. 15 years ago. No. What? How many years ago was Series 3?
Series 3 was 2007. Series 11 was 2017.
Okay, yeah. Well, I know that it is a recent anniversary of Series 3, but to what? I can't remember.
Right. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I guess in those 10 years, continuing with Torchwood, going on to do Broadchurch and other shows, I guess kind of just like the sensibilities and values of Chibnall as a writer really changed. And because it's, to me, current Doctor Who compared to 42 here, the writing feels almost unrecognizable. And I don't know if that's something more to do with the larger production side and the way things are filmed and paced and whatever, or what.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Chibnall era episodes are significantly longer than Russell era episodes, aren't they? Well, they can be.
Yeah, not by long though, but yeah, they tend to be. Yeah. I feel like
it's a weird comparison.
Yeah, I feel like when we get into that era, there will be more discussions about writing, but I think it's pretty standard to say that there is usually very little to comment on that isn't positive about Russell T Davies' writing.
I've made my case about Russell more times than is probably necessary. I'm a big fan of Russell.
Yeah. Anything else, Harry? Anything else about 42?
Just a general note, kind of the thing that kind of strikes me the most is how hot it feels.
Yes.
Like the lighting in it, I find really effective. Like it feels really warm. It's like, ugh, I'm glad I'm not there.
And you can see all the sweat on the actors. I imagine it wasn't realistically that hot, but with the lights, it will be hot on a film set anyway, but obviously not as hot as it's being made out. I'm just heading over to our Instagram now. You can give us a follow on Instagram. Go to instagram.com/bigger-on-the-pod. I did put up a thing earlier to see what people thought of 42. And I hadn't checked this before, but the first comment I see is from Harry, and it just says, "Burn with me" in big capital letters. Did you feel like that was maybe a slightly forced catchphrase that we're trying to put on to everyone? Before we get to that, one last one from Jordan, who says, "I think this is one of the few Chris Chibnall episodes that are actually any good." So I'm sure Jordan will have a lot to say when we get to his tenure. But yeah, sorry, go back to Burn With Me. Do you think that was a bit of a forced catchphrase sort of thing?
No more so than "Are You My Mummy?"
Yeah, I feel like they did "Are You
Like,
My
I feel
Mummy?" Like, what's the next thing going to be? But it wasn't until I watched this episode today that I went, "Oh yeah, they say burn with me in this episode." Whereas "Are You My Mummy?" I didn't need to be reminded of that.
To me, Burn With Me is like the one thing that really I remembered in this story from my childhood.
Really?
And now I think about it, now I've made the Empty Child comparison. There's a lot to compare there. It's like a person, person in a mask, person in a helmet, possessed by kind of a thing, a glowy thing.
I wonder if we're now at a point where we might start seeing reoccurring storylines or reoccurring motifs and similarities, because we're halfway through. Well, we're over halfway through Tennant's era as the Doctor. I know we're about halfway. I'd say we're just over halfway, depending on how many specials there are, and which means we're nearing the end of RTD's era. We're going to be entering Stephen Moffat's era very soon. So we're getting to a point now where writers are starting to return and monsters and themes are starting to return. So it would be interesting to maybe keep a track and go, "Oh, that's very much like 42, or that's much like Blink, or whatever," just to see what keeps appearing.
Yeah, well, I mean, this certainly isn't the first kind of similarity comparison we've had in this series. Like I said, Shakespeare Code feels very much of the same vein as The Unquiet Dead. I feel like those two are very much in the same realms.
Yeah. What did you think to the scary woman who is hanging out with Martha's mum? Without talking about stuff we shouldn't yet know. Just from the information we've been presented with, how do you feel about that? I really like it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool, very intriguing element of the show. I know it kind of reminds me of stuff, how kind of I like kind of the prominence of this recurring arching story. It's similar to stuff that kind of Moffat does later on with like The Crack and Missy. of kind of like this underlying mystery that kind of you get a scene or two dedicated to it each episode, and it's just like, it's just kind of this undertone to everything that's going on. Even when there's a happy ending, you're a little bit, what was that? Who is this Harold Saxon?
Yeah, it
fellow?
keeps you coming back, doesn't it? I like stuff like that because I feel it is rewarding for those who watch the show weekly and who engage with it and engage with the content of it. And it's also, obviously, there is like a sort of a tease for others to go, oh, look what you could miss out on if you don't tune back in next week.
I want to ask, because it's kind of New Who very much has had two ways of handling kind of like these recurring motifs and mysteries in series. There's stuff like this and say like the crack in series 5, where it's a very prominent part of the story and it's very impossible to ignore. And then there's more subtle ones such as Bad Wolf and Like a Hybrid. Do you have a preference over those?
I like Bad Wolf and I like Vote Saxon. The one that really stood out to me that I didn't particularly like was Missy's first series, where everybody would appear in heaven. They'd be like, "Who's this woman?" And everybody would go, "Well, it's the master," but she's now a woman. People, I feel like I listened to a podcast with Russell, and he said that he spoke to Stephen Moffat, and he said he can't believe that people are yet to figure out that Doctor Who only has two reoccurring surprises, which is that the Doctor regenerates and the Master appears. They're the two things, and I feel it needs more now. I feel like it needed more maybe about 5 years ago when Peter Capaldi was in it. I feel like if they went, actually, it's the Rani or something like that, it would have been much more exciting. And I feel like it needs to do more stuff like that, because whenever there is a tease of who is this character, you go through the list, you have a go, it's either the Master, a Time Lord we don't know, a future version of the Doctor, a past version of the Doctor, or a relative of the Doctor.
Also, just something in general to do with Gallifrey as well.
Yeah. So I do prefer it when it's hidden. Like, we didn't know what Bad Wolf was, and we didn't know what Vote Saxon meant. We didn't know who Mr. Saxon was because we hadn't even seen it. We've never even seen him. So I do prefer it like that. But
before this episode, we had that Next Time clip compilation, and there was one shot of a guy. I mean, we weren't told who the guy was, but we saw him. We saw John Sim playing someone.
That's true. And I'm trying to remember if I knew at the time if it was going to be the Master.
The only people who picked up on that would have like seen him and who would watch Life on Mars and like, wait, is that the guy from Life on Mars? Is he in an episode?
Yeah. It's a god awful small affair, but I'm gonna do the quiz. We're doing the quiz, Harry.
You, not me. I hate being patient. Patience is for wimps.
I wanted to just sing David Bowie.
I love David Bowie. Before we go into the quiz, are you a Bowie fan?
I honestly need to listen to much more Bowie. I only really know like the big hits like Starman and Life on Mars, both of which are songs I adore, and others like Changes. I need to listen to more of his full discography.
Yeah. Question number 1, Harry. What area number did one of the crew... at the start of the episode, when the Doctor opens that big red door and the place goes into lockdown, what area number did the crew announce that they were almost trapped inside of?
Is it 42?
25, Harry, 25. Good guess, though. Good guess.
I wasn't far off.
How many password-protected doors were there?
Are there 42?
29. This one...
I was even closer that time.
Who had more number ones, Elvis or the Beatles?
Is it it's Elvis.
It is Elvis, well done. 1 point, as always. I don't think we've ever done more than 2 for you. So yeah, there you go. 1 point there. Got any stuff you want to recommend?
Before I go, I just want to tell you you were fantastic.
Although, fun fact, if you look back at all the correct answers I've had over the whole series, you'll find that the total is 42.
So everyone's got to go back and
God, I
listen.
hope that's right. Everyone's going to look back. Someone might count it up. Not
Someone
me.
try to work it out.
Because
Anything to recommend, Harry?
Ooh, do I have anything to recommend?
Do you want me to go first while you think
I'm
about
not sure.
something?
Yes, please, Tim.
Yes.
Thank you. I
Okay,
do
so
have something. I do have something.
Either last week or the week before, I said that I was listening to all of Oasis's discography, and I have nearly finished. And what I did the other night was I went onto Netflix and I was just browsing. It came up as a suggested thing, which is Supersonic, the Oasis documentary. Now, stuff like
Is
that.
that the one that interviews both Noel and Liam separately?
Yeah, you never see any of them being interviewed on screen. It's just their voice. But it is really, really good, and it's really well done. And you do think, because you're not going to see any of the band, that it won't be very interesting. But with a lot of the archive footage and graphics and stuff like that, it is a really good watch. It is really revealing as well into sort of an era where we were alive but didn't really know what was going on. Like, the Oasis broke up in 2008, and in 2008 I was watching Doctor Who. I wasn't listening to Oasis stuff, so that just never. I feel our generation do feel slightly deprived that we were sort of on Earth the same time as Oasis, but we were like 5 years too young for it.
It's fine. My family have made a real effort. You know, like, you're either a Blur family or you're an Oasis family, and my family, very much an Oasis family. My brother has definitely maybe, and what's the story, Morning Glory on vinyl. We listen to those frequently. Oasis. I've watched Supersonic as well. It's really interesting. It was a little before I actually probably got into their music, so it kind of, you know, they're a bit the Gallaghers, you know.
I'd also recommend.
But damn, are they good musicians?
Yeah. I'd also recommend Liam Gallagher's documentary as well, As It Was, which was available until recently on BBC iPlayer in the UK. But I think you can pick the DVD up for like a couple of quid now. But that's almost like his return to solo music and sort of how he's, you know, how when Oasis left, what he did. And it's very good if you're looking for a glimpse into how fame can sort of very quickly tear you up and sort of that stuff. Harry, any recommendations from yourself?
I do. Have you ever watched Lego Masters?
I've seen bits of it.
Lego Masters is, in the UK, is a show on Channel 4, which is basically Bake Off, but with Lego, aka Bake Off, but even better. Because every week you get these teams of two creating insane things with Lego that I really want to play with, and they look so good. Like, the best thing about Bake Off, watching it on TV, is like the visuals, like this, you know, the big showstoppers, because like they look so cool. Here, it's all about that, but it's with Lego, so it's colorful, and elaborate, and playful. And so Lego Masters UK is one thing. But currently on E4 is Lego Masters USA.
Is that with Will Arnett?
That's right, Will Arnett, you know, doing his goofy Will Arnett thing, and like, you know every like UK version of the show. Like, compare what's the Gordon Ramsay show called? Kitchen Nightmares.
Kitchen.
Yeah. Kitchen Nightmares.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like Kitchen Nightmares UK to Kitchen Nightmares USA, and everything is just like ramped up to like 11, and so like they make the Lego builds even more insane. The contestants are even more insane. Like, the production value, like they have like these Lego movie style vignettes where like they animate the builds that they make in like the Lego movie style, and like it's mental.
Who hosts
mental.
the British
version?
version?
Lego, and I love it. I think I can't remember.
Is it Melvin O'Doom?
It is Melvin. It's Melvin. Yeah, that's right.
I knew it was either Melvin O'Doom or Steve Mangan.
It might be both of them. I think there are two hosts. I can't remember.
Okay, nice. I'll definitely give that a watch.
You don't watch for the hosts. It's you watch for the crazy Lego. But me and my brother especially, Love Lego.
I love Lego. Spent too much money on Lego in my early teens. And that's that. I imagine that's available to watch on all 4.
Also on all 4. I don't know if you can watch previous series of Lego Masters on all 4. I'd be surprised if you couldn't. Any Lego Masters, any type of Lego Masters you can get your hands on, watch it. That's what I'm gonna watch after this. After we stop recording, I'm gonna.
Do you know what? I might do the same.
Tonight.
I've got to have my tea, so I'll probably go watch that.
There's like the 3rd episode is tonight, so you should be able to watch the first 2 as well, which you should do because
how
they're
long's
great.
An episode?
An hour. Well, 40 minutes if you count the ads. Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to us talking about 42 Guys. It's been a slightly different watch along. I'm sure next week when we talk about Human Nature Family Blood, which I am beyond excited about to rewatch, we will have lots and lots and lots of exciting things to say about the amazing writer that is Paul Cornell. So do come back next week, and I will now say goodbye. Ta-ra, everybody. Harry, do you want to say anything?
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity, goodbye.
Make sure you subscribe to the official Bigger on the Inside podcast.